谢谢大家今天来我们现场参加 Gabriel Orozco 个展的 talk。这一次会是由就是 Gabriel 的藏家，就是我们基金会的执行长和 founder Jenny， 然后和 Gabriel 做一个线上的会谈那样子。那我想简单介绍一下 Gabriel， 他是出生于1962年，在就是墨西哥的一个城市叫亚拉帕，然后他其实已经是国际上面非常知名的艺术家，然后他的展览经历非常的丰富，像也做过很多个展，在 MoMA、在 Tate、在庞毕度、古根汉等等的大型重要的美术馆都有展出过，所以我们这次也是很荣幸的，可以在就是文心艺所展出他的作品。那这次的展期比较长，总共会有6个月到10月。会这么长的原因，是因为就是 Jenny 的收藏其实没有办法在一次短短3个月的时间就把它全部展完，所以我们会分成2个阶段。我刚刚提到的第2个阶段，我们会在7月初左右的时候，会把它一些作品换下来，换成其他的作品。那也会把 Orozco 的很重要的 Working Table 系列放进来。所以如果大家有兴趣的话，7月可以再2访一次。OK， 那我想现在我们就用掌声来欢迎 Jenny 和 Orozco。
好，首先先谢谢大家。我知道今天下午有很多的活动，那谢谢大家今天来到文心艺所听我跟 Orozco 的线上对谈。我是2017年开始收 Orozco 的作品，那我第一件作品是他的那个Summer Retreat。我之所以他吸引我，大家也知道我收的painting 并不多。那我之所以会收他的 painting， 是因为我觉得他的 painting 不是 painting， 它是非常立体的3D 的，我觉得是比较有立体感，像雕塑一样的画作。Orozco 先生因为他旅行，然后他有一个非常丰富的生活经验。那我因为这个作品，进而去了解他陆陆续续衍生出来的其他在不同地区创造的作品。那我觉得他跟我自己的本行建筑、跟材料、跟空间、跟时间都有关系，所以我们就陆陆续续的收藏了他各式不一样的作品，雕塑、摄影、light box、painting。我今天希望借由这个 talk， 然后让台湾、让更多艺术圈的人了解 Gabriel。Gabriel, you want to say hello and start some conversation with us first?
Of course. Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. It looks so beautiful, the exhibition, a beautiful installation, and it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And I hear the sound is a bit tricky with the microphone, but I can hear you well now. So thank you very much, and hello everybody. Thank you for coming. My pleasure to be.
Gabriel, let's talk very easy, just like we talk in Tokyo. 我们简单的聊，然后我们就像我们2个在东京那样子的聊天。然后 I keep my promise. I have my martini with me.
I have some water. Cheers.
我试着用我自己理解出来Gabriel 的创作理念来跟 Gabriel 聊。我想先从他的圆形序球的概念来跟大家聊。我想知道他什么时候对圆形有兴趣，他怎么发展，他的灵感是怎么来的
？Well, circles came in my life in many ways since I was a kid. I guess playing football, soccer, and all kinds of ball games. I was very fond of the bouncing and the kicking and the movement on the sports based on balls. But basically, soccer was my main sport. On the other hand, I was very fond of planets and astronomy. Perhaps, traveling to the moon in the 60s. I was born in 62, so the spaceships and the travel into the cosmos was very important. And somehow I was fascinated by the planets, by the solar system, by the astronomy in general, and the physics and also I learned mathematics to more like geometry, the theory of Euler-Ben and mathematics and geometry. And I have a very good teacher in mathematics in my primary school. So when I was a kid, I was very much into geometry. Perhaps also chess. I was a chess player since a kid. And there is something about the knight movement and the game of chess that is very circular in the way you are developing a field of game of rules that it happens in a circular way. So all this together, and the fact that I always like to make drawings and use circles in all my drawings since I was a kid, something I just developed all my life, I think. But today, I guess my research, it has to do also with the fact that circular objects from base, bowls, plates, everything that has to be that is in constant permanent movement has to be circular. Like planets, they are spherical, and then the Earth, the perpetual motion of the planets, but also the everyday objects in the table that we use. Of course, the wheels of the cars and the orbits and the time that happens in space is through circular objects that are happening in tridimensional situations. It's just a fascination I have. And so it's not just circles, but also spheres, volume, and space and time. That is all together. And I think the circle is the best way to express these realities in the movements of the world.
那延续上一个问题，就是既然圆形对他这么重要，那我们也知道他有一系列的这个 Samurai Tree。那我想请教一下 Gabriel， 他这样的圆形的变化是用什么样的基础的原则？那这些颜色，他又是怎么样去判定使用了这些？那这些颜色又代表了什么？
In the Samurai Tree series, the discs or circles are starting from a center point in the plane, and then from there I make a horizontal and vertical axle, talking about gravity and horizon, and then I have to divide the circle in 4. So I decided to have the 2 primary colors, red and blue, and then white, and the opposite of white, in this case, not the opposite, but the complementary is gold, because it's a non-color, pure light, just a totality kind of field. So I needed just to have 4 elements of color that were in perfect equilibrium. So then I could start to develop the colors in the growing of the axils in the tree sequence, like a growing plant. So that's why the size of the circles normally is from 1 to half, and then double, and then half, double, half, double. So exponentially is growing. And the location of the color is 2, 1 or 1, 2, like the knight in chess movement.
那 Gabriel， 我很好奇，就是这个系列你发展了很久之后呢，你在去年的时候发表了一个以人体为中心的一个圆形的，就像我现在 slides 看到的这一张。对，我想要知道说，你发展了这么久的 Samurai Tree， 然后到以人，然后最后是一个圆形，那这之间的关系跟你为什么最后发展这么多年之后，还回归到自己本身的圆
Well, it's not a return exactly because first I started to work with imprints of plants, leaves, and flowers in the since long time ago. I have since then developed a curiosity for nature and the forms of organic growing in plants. So that also was treated through photography. I have many photos with leaves and animals and fruits. I was also interested very much in fruits as a transportation system for the plants to reproduce, for the trees to reproduce. They do it through the fruits and the seeds that they get dispersed around. So I was all interested in this since long time. So at some point, when I was working in a big project for a park and a restoration and reforestation in a park, I was thinking in the Moebius stripe. So is this infinite line that is, in a way, two circles that interconnect, and in one line that is bidimensional and tridimensional at the same time, and is in continuous movement. So I combine the Moebius stripe diagram with the imprints of plants and leaves, and also the color palette started to also have more like a splattering on top of this, trying to think about the non-geometric parts of nature that it just happened through the infinite movement of strings, or the Moebius and the protons that are in constant movement. And that's why I also mix it with animals like frogs, lobster, shrimps, and all the animals that I was interested in this connection with nature. And when I came to use the Vitruvius Man from Leonardo da Vinci, was because it's a diagram of a human body. It's not so much the interest in the figuration or figurative aspect, but in the diagrammatic or diagram aspect of this counterposition between the frog and the human body and the molecules, Moebius stripes, and nature, plants, and all the different layers of nature that are in the circularity of the bodies in the universe somehow.
那我们会回到 Samara Tree 跟 Circle 对我来讲Gabriel 你的画比较像是雕塑，比较立体，比较有空间感。我想请问一下，你对我这样子的想法有什么样的你有什么样的想法吗？
Yes, somehow they are tridimensional proposition. They behave, or they try to behave in terms of geometry and movement in a tridimensional way. So, sculpture is a term that is a bit limited, as much as painting is also a limited term, because at the end we are working with the elements of materials that somehow, it can be pigment and oil or egg tempera. It can also be stone, but also can be, metal, air, water, or ready-made objects. So at the end, the developing of ideas and propositions in terms of space and time and developing a language or a structure that is explaining somehow tridimensionality, movement, space and time again, and nature or perception of reality is not so clearly divided in my work in terms of painting, sculpture, or photography or drawing, because at the end, everything is all together to try to develop these try to develop these propositions in terms of tridimensional and space and time situations that you can express in a flat surface, but also in a surface with volume, and also in relationship with different moments in the same work. That includes the time that is cyclical also.
我答应你在东京的时候，这个谈话是会非常轻松的，所以我们来聊一些你的生活。我相信对艺术家来讲，生活是创作非常重要的一部分。你告诉我你在世界各地都有房子，那你在墨西哥长大，你在墨西哥带房，在墨西哥，在纽约，在旧金山，在巴黎，最后你落脚在东京。我想知道为什么你可以在东京住了10年，什么吸引了你？
Well, the way I work is that I try to go to different situations and places, but also in same places into different moments when I am curious about some kind of exploration. And I try to not have any tools with me or a preconception of what I'm going to do in these different places. And that is the work I have done in the last few years. So, for example, when I went to the Gwangju Biennale in Korea, I went empty-handed for a biennial, and I just asked to arrive 1 week before the opening for the Gwangju Biennale. Then I just arrive, and then I start to walk in the street, and I have some drawings I have with me because I wanted to keep doing these things I have been doing in the last 5 years. And then I saw these signs in the street. They were all these signs, and they were in Korean. And of course, I didn't understand what they were saying, but they were all, to me, like they look like beautiful signs, light signs with nice colors. And they look like abstract paintings to me. So then I decided, okay, I'll try my hand going to one of these sign makers in the street. It was around next to a market in Gwangju. And I decided to ask if he could, this man could help me to make 5 of these signs with my drawing. And he told me yes. And then I worked with him for 2 days. And I showed them in the Gwangju Biennale. So the combination of this encounter in Gwangju with some ideas that I was working before in different places is what makes my work happen in different contexts. So that's why I don't have a studio, although I work in my house, in my apartment, in the kitchen, or in the library. So that's why I do develop a few places of work that at the same time are my homes, because I am in contact with different cultures at the same time. I work in New York, I work in Mexico, I work in Paris, I work in Tokyo, but also I'm traveling and I'm working with other countries for different projects. Of course, I don't have a house in every part I go. I'll be very happy staying 1 week in a hotel or in a house friend and working there, because I can work everywhere. And in a way, that is the system of work that I like. It's not that to have a big studio or a kind of factory of production, but to develop work in relation with every single moment in everyday life, and with different cultures, different languages, different landscapes. Because at the end, the work develops the landscape, or is creating the landscape at the same time that is creating nature and the language and the and inhabitants of this possible landscape. So it's all a kind of ecosystem of working, and is a way for me to live and think in a way that is cyclical, evolving, and not repeating myself with a formula, but always learning, and in a way always being a kind of beginner somehow.
我想这也是为什么我收这个Light Box 的原因。我想在我们小时候的成长过程的，在台湾的街道上，我们都会看到很多这种灯箱，然后我就说当代艺术一定是跟你的生活有关，那这也是跟我从小生活的经验有关，所以我们基金会收了这个 Light Box。我相信台湾跟日本的关系是非常紧密的。然后我去年在纽约看到了Tokyo Walking Table。那我们可以看到 Talking Table 上面有很多，其实它的食品的包装，包括养乐多，其实都跟我们生活息息相关。那我想这是 Gabriel 在东京10年之后做出来的一个东京的桌子，他的工作的经验的桌子。那我想要请 Gabriel 聊一聊这个 Tokyo Working Table， 好不好？
Well, yeah, the working tables started in the 90s when I was, precisely because I was working in my spaces, in my kitchen table or in my dining table or in my desk. And I was using a lot of small objects, doing drawings, making some tests. And I was putting all these residues and all these tests and trials in shoe boxes in my closet when I was doing something else or having dinner. So then over the years, they accumulate. And I showed the first one in 96. The first table was basically mostly from New York objects that I have in the 90s in New York. Over the years, I start to just every 5 to 10 years to show these samples, residues, tests, drawings, objects, ready-mades, etc., in a platform that is the same height as a table, and then in a way that looks like my desk is the way I normally I am working with all these different things. Of course, plus my notebook and the computer and the telephone and other things. But these are the objects that were in my apartment in Tokyo. I have an apartment, a small apartment, and I work in the little table we have for dinner, and also in the kitchen. So this was accumulated there. You have from the Rotoshakus tests, then you have they give me all these presentation cards, and I didn't know what to do with them. And then I make some faces of the people. I somehow imagined that they were there in these business cards. Then I have these diagrams I was doing for the garden in South London, a project for a garden in South London. So a lot of these works are not just for Japan. They are just the works of the things I am thinking and playing. Also, remember, I like chess and board games. So perhaps we can see them also this as a kind of my own board game, my own landscape of ideas in a scale that I also like to play with: small scale, big scale, and this combination of different scales and into the landscape and the developing of works, sculpture and painting and objects and you know, a little bit of everything. So this is 10 years of residues of the work in Tokyo, in Japan.
我想这个 Tokyo Walking Table 是一个非常 重要的一个作品，对 Gabriel 来讲。那我们在7月份这个展览的第2阶段，我们将会展出。那因为 Gabriel 告诉我说他儿子在高中的时候在巴厘岛求学，所以他们也在巴厘岛住了一阵子。那我们基金会也收藏了一件他在巴厘岛做的这个 sculpture， 那他是会用石灰岩做的。那我也很好奇，问一下 Gabriel 他在巴厘岛的这段期间，他的生活经验有没有什么要跟我们分享的？那如果可以的话，也帮我们谈谈这件作品。
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I was looking for a picture of this workshop in Bali. Now that we are here, for example, this piece. Okay, so this is how they. Sorry, I never did this before, but somehow working in stone carvers in Bali was a great experience because we were in the. Sorry, can you see? So the experience was fantastic because I went there with my family. My son was in school. We lived there for 2 years. And then I was taking my scooter and going to the stonemason workshop. And I asked them to have a square, a cube. And then I draw my circles in the 6 faces of the cube. And I start to carve. I asked them to teach me how to do the carving. This is very soft sandstone, and they use for reliefs and all kinds of sculptures for their temples. And then I just worked there for 1 year. And at the end, they helped me to do a lot of this because it was very difficult to carve so perfect. So they were very skillful. But I was there every day working with this. And that was the reason, in fact, I asked my wife and my son when he was 12, if they could come with me to Bali because I wanted to do carving in this precise stone. And they say, yes, okay, let's go. 6 months, but then we end up staying 2 years. So it was a great experience, all family trip to Bali for work, basically.
我很谢谢 Gabriel 分享这些手稿哦，那我也很羡慕他可以在巴厘岛住2年，我希望我也可以做这样的事情。那大家都知道这个基金会背后是一家建设公司哦，那所以我对这种景观啊，这种空间都很有兴趣。那我知道2019年的时候 ，Gabriel 参与了这个墨西哥的Chapultepec Park 这个项目，我想请他分享一下这个计划。我知道这个计划在明年2月份将要完成。那我们可不可以聊一下这个计划？因为这个跟我自己的就是我自己的行业比较有关系。
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you. Yes, well, I guess, first of all, I always try to work with landscape myself. I try to think in terms of landscape and also construction because I try to always develop a kind of geometric structure or to play with objects in reality in a sense of a structure and in relation with the landscape and in connection with the human body, although is not always present, the human body as a figurative or mimetic figure is always about the human body in connection with the landscape. So I mentioned that because I remember someone told me once long time ago that I was a builder. I was not an artist. I was also a builder because I was always building something. So then when I got invited to develop the master plan for this park, which is something like our Central Park in Mexico City, and it was quite abandoned and needed some new spaces, and we developed a master plan. And I particularly designed this bridge that we needed badly to have this pedestrian bridge, bicycles, pedestrian, to cross from one section to the other. So the whole experience was very intense. We worked for 5 years. It's going to be finished next September. And it's a working process, but we managed to do 5 new museums, concert halls, museums, and restoration of a couple of old buildings. They were from since colonial times. We also rescue and protect a well, spring water coming in one of the areas. Almost 800 hectares of reforestation. So it was a big project, but divided in reforestation, so ecological rescue in terms of water and plants, but at the same time also social was very important to make more accessible, more safe, and also important because this is a public park. So now is all open and free for people to enjoy. So it was a very intense work, and in a way I treated like a working table, in a way like a board game or a big sculpture that has to be developed in all different layers, strata, from the ground to the top of the trees. And yeah, it was a very intense experience, but I think that we are finishing in good shape, and I'm happy. It's looking good. What I could say then is just that this project is a combination of all the things that interest me in terms of geometry, but also landscape, human scale. This is just the bridge, but we have 2 bridges. We have other bridges. This is just one sample of one of the projects, but this is just. It looks quite ugly because it's just finished now, but it's gonna be with more nature and plants. So yeah, we are still doing another one, and it's ongoing, this project. Maybe you should change the photo, please. That is the South London Gallery Garden. I did a small patio in London. We have new photos 5 years later, and it looks much better. You know, gardens, when you just open the garden, it doesn't look nice. It's just much better now.
我想，因为上个月我在跟 Gabriel 有个深入的谈话，然后今天他也帮我介绍他自己的作品。那我因为时间的关系，那我 Gabriel 我是不是可以开放一个给大家提问的机会 ？Anyone want to ask a question? Sylvie.
Sorry, my question is, your work probably reminds me about from the geometric, the modernism, how they analysis the landscape and human figures from geometric style, this kind of geometric analysis to more modernism way. And also the Brazil, the 1960, the neo-concrete movement. Do you think it's a little bit related to your work concept, or also I saw your format, it's become from geometric, become very organic in the late series. Do you think it's any related to your concept or idea? Thank you.
I couldn't understand very well some of the terms.
1960的一个应该叫构成主义的一个巴西的一个 movement, neo-concrete. 然后另外一个是一个比较 figure， 应该是说现代主义里面，比如说从塞尚那边用到的这种很几何式的去分析风景或者是人体的这种构图结构，是不是在他的作品里面有这种的概念的表现？然后同时他的作品也从一种比较几何的早期的形状，好像我们看到在书里面你们里面有比较更有机的这种形式的发展，想知道说这个部分有没有对他有什么样的影响？谢谢。
Yes, well, my big influences for the geometry I enjoy playing with, because it's a little bit of a game. I don't claim to be a geometer or mathematician, scientist, but the way I found very useful to work has coming from constructivism, Russian constructivism, early Mondrian, not so much from Cubism or Cézanne. I think it's more connected with, in fact, maybe with Seurat, and then obviously Mondrian. But then also has been very important for me Indian art from India, Tantric Buddhist imaging and diagrams from Jaina and Tantric Buddhism has been very important as a kind of abstraction, but also works as a diagram in movement. So it's not so much a static window that you see, like in the case of Mondrian, which is a kind of window. This is also a diagram, is an instrument. It's also like a functioning instructive pattern that you can use because it proposes movement and three-dimensionality and somehow explains a few things in life. But for example, the samurai trees, if you take out the title, you will not think that this is a tree. But I put the tree because I was thinking in a tree, how the tree grows. But it's not a tree that you see from in front of you. It's a tree that you are looking from the top or from the bottom as a diagram, as a growing mandala or mantra. And that's why also is very flat. It works also as a mobile, like Calder, for example. Calder abstraction has been important to me and is, of course, sculpture, and the mobile is very important. But, at the same time, the questioning of this geometry is important. That's why Duchamp and Dadaism was also very relevant, because you cannot just believe in geometry as if it was a static, monolithic God. There is also chance. There is also accidents. There is also nature and organicity. That's why the combination of the two, the geometric and the, let's say, rational, with the accidental, the chance, and the irrational, if you want, is what makes the organisms and the machines work, because they have to be in constant creation and recreation, and a lot of it is mostly very mysterious. It's an accident. You cannot believe that you are gonna focus and describe the whole universe just based on geometry. There are so many ways to work. That's why it develops into something that is more organic.
我们今天很谢谢 Gabriel， 我知道他已经开车到海边准备要度假。那最后我想问问看他有没有对这展览有什么意见，那还要对我们台湾的朋友们有没有什么话要说，在结束之前。
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very grateful and happy to be here with you. And I love the way you have built the collection. In general, many artists that I also admire, and I think is great all the work you're doing. I saw pictures of the exhibition. It looks good, and I love the collection on my work. I think there is a narrative. The selection of the works in the here in the screen, because there is some connection in all of this. You have managed a very nice narrative of the work, and I think you have done that with other artists too. And I think that is very valuable because it's constructing a collection and a vision at the same time in a way that is not so easy in short time. So I think very happy. Congratulations, and thank you for inviting me for this conversation. It's a pleasure for me.
Thank you, Gabriel. I hope to see you soon, and maybe next year in Mexico, right?
Yes, Mexico, or I go with you to Taiwan to
Okay.
I think it looks. I understand my family went for a visit, and I apparently it looks very much like Mexico. So I'm very curious.
See you. Okay. Thank you so much, Gabriel. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you.
Love you.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
那我还是谢谢大家在今天下午来到紫艺所，然后我希望大家再 take a look， 这是我们基金会花了很长的时间去做的一个收藏Please enjoy, okay? And we have food and drinking on the back. Thank you.